Hello everyone. So this video is the continuation of the last video, Unit 2, Part 2 video. Today's session, we are going to continue with the topic of the concept of nature in Romantic period. According to the Romantics, the solution was back to nature because nature was seen as a pure and spiritual source of renewal. It was also your way out of the fumes of the growing industrial centers for the new industrial rich. What is the concept of the nature in Romantic literature? Romantic poets try to heal the sorrows of human beings by writing their verses about nature. Thus, Romantic poets believe that nature is a source of revelation. They use simple language and shape nature as a god, man, etc. Then, what is the concept of Romantic period? The Romantic period is a term applied to the literature of approximately the first third of the 19th century. During this time, literature began to move in channels that were not entirely new, but were in strong contrast to the standard literary practice of the 18th century. How was the nature important for romantics? Romantic artists depicted nature to be not only beautiful, but powerful, unpredictable, and destructive. This constituted a radical departure from Enlightenment representations of the natural world as orderly and benign. Then, how does nature connect with Romanticism? Romanticism and nature are connected because the artists and the philosophers of the Romantic period emphasize the glory and beauty of nature and the power of natural world. Some scholars of Romanticism believe that the Romantics treated nature in an almost religious way. How was nature viewed differently in the Romantic period? In Enlightenment and neoclassical art, nature was viewed as orderly, rational, and subject to laws that people can manipulate and observe, while during the Romantic period, nature was viewed as more powerful than themselves and analogs to human feelings. So this part is very important. We should know how does the nature view differently in the Romantic period. For clear understanding, I will repeat it again. In Enlightenment and neoclassical art, nature was viewed as orderly, rational, and subject to laws that people can manipulate and observe, while during the Romantic period, nature was viewed as more powerful than themselves and analogs to human feelings. So, how is nature a dominant theme in Romantic poetry? Nature is a dominant theme in Romantic poetry, understood to represent the divine presence in the world and a source of beauty, innocence, and solace to humankind. Then, another term, definition of poetry. Poetry, also called verse, is a form of literature that uses aesthetic and often rhythmic qualities of language, such as phonaesthetics, sound symbolism, and meter to evoke meanings in addition to or in the place of a prosaic ostensible meaning. So This is the general definition of poetry. But we can define in two different ways. First one, metrical writing, that is verse, the productions of the poet, poems. Second way, writing that formulates a concreted imaginative awareness of experience in language chosen and arranged to create a specific emotional response through meaning, soul, and rhythm. Poetry, literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, and rhythm. Characteristics of the Romantic period. What are they? Figures of speech or figurative language are ways of describing or explaining things in a non-literal or non-traditional way. Descriptive imagery. Imagery is something concrete like a sight, smell, or taste. Then punctuation and format, sound and tone, choice of mood. Characteristics of Romanticism in Romantic literature is marked by 6 primary characteristics. They are celebration of nature, focus on the individual and spirituality, celebration of isolation and melancholy, interest in the common man, idealization of woman, and personification and pathetic fallacy. Then, what is subjective poetry? Subjective poetry deals with the poet's own thoughts and emotions. It deals with what the poet personally thinks and feels within. The subjective poetry is a highly personal. It appeals more to our heart. We generally try to gather some information about the poet through his work of art. Spontaneous expression. To understand the function of poetry, to define the meaning behind the keywords in a statement. The adjective spontaneous implies that poetry is unplanned or is a result of natural impulses. It is hard to define poetry in few lines because in every literature, in every language, poetry is considered to be the most complex and sophisticated form of art. Poetry describes so many things and changes its colors so frequently that it cannot be called a static form of art. As poetry is not static, it can't be defined as a concrete and static element. After all, poetry is always a moving. Every significant era or moment of literature has its own style of shape of poetry. As mentioned here, every significant era or moment of literature has its own definition of poetry, and that is the overall ruling definition of poetry of that time, as it happens in case of romantic poetry of English literature. Often, it is considered that romantic poetry is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. This definition is a bit revised definition of poetry of William Wordsworth for poetry, not for any significant kind of poetry because he himself is a romantic poet. But this definition of romantic poetry can be rejected to some extent and to do so little need be said about romantic poetry. Transcendentalism. Transcendentalism is the 19th century movement of writers and philosophers in New England who were loosely bound together by adherence to an idealistic system of thought based on a belief in the essential unity of all creation, the innate goodness of humanity, and the supremacy of insight over logic and experience. For Transcendentalism in Romantic period. Transcendentalism, which lasted from about 1830 to 1860, was a vital part of the Romantic movement. Ralph Waldo Emerson was its putative leader. Henry David Thoreau and Margaret Fuller were among the principals of the movement. Transcendentalists believe there is a divine spirit in nature and in every living soul. What is Transcendentalism Romanticism? Transcendentalism is the power of knowledge to transcend intellectual growth and spirituality. It also highlights the power of divinity, nature, and individualism. Romanticism exemplifies the importance of emotions and freedom over intellectual growth. They believe that everyone should follow what they are feeling. What does do Romanticism and Transcendentalism have in common? The age of Romantics and Transcendentalists introduced the idea that generally all of mankind was born good. A huge focus of Romanticism and Transcendentalism is that the contact with the nature plays a huge role in mankind, otherwise known as pantheism. Pessimistic tone. Pessimistic tone reflects a negative view of a situation or the belief that situation will not get better. Pessimism is not realism, but an author may use this tone when they feel negative while writing or when they want to reflect a point of view that sees things negatively. How was a pessimistic romantic writer? Romantic pessimism writer, that is the Goethe novelist Schopenhauer, Wagner. Then what is the tone of romantic artwork? Romantic art focused on emotions, feelings, and moods of all kinds, including spirituality, imagination, mystery, and fervor. Okay, so here again, I explain here that is the romantic art focused on emotions, feelings, and moods of all kinds. For what? Including spirituality, imagination, mystery, and fervor. The subject matter viewed widely, including landscape, religion, revolution, and peaceful beauty, the brushwork of romantic art became looser and less precise. Why was nature a source of beauty for the Romantics? According to the Romantics, the solution was back to nature because nature was seen as pure and spiritual source of renewal. It was also a way out of the fumes of the growing industrial centers for the new industrial rich. What is the role of beauty in the Romantic poetry? One of the most important ingredients of Romantic poetry is passionate love for beauty. Every poet, in one way or the other, is lover of beauty. John Milton was a good lover of beauty as well as religion. William Wordsworth finds beauty only in nature. How does nature connect with Romanticism? Romanticism and nature are connected because the artist and philosopher of the Romantic period emphasized the glory and beauty of nature and the power of the natural world. Some scholars of Romanticism believe that the Romanticists treated nature in an almost religious way. Love of nature. People and nature were objectified and reduced to commodity status. This was regarded as undesirable and leading to the degradation of the humans. According to the Romantics, The solution was back to nature because nature was seen as pure and a spiritual source of renewal. What is love of nature in Romanticism? Romanticism and nature are connected because the artists and the philosophers of the Romantic period emphasized the glory and beauty of nature and the power of the natural world. Here, the archaic meters have been measured by these categories. That is, the sublime. The sublime is considered one of the most important concepts in Romantic poetry. Reaction against neoclassicism, imagination, nature poetry, melancholy, medievalism, Hellenism, supernaturalism. So these archaic meters, the tough thing about translating poetry or anything for that matter is that it's not only content but from that has to come through in the new version. And since every language has different rhythms and different rhyming words, it's very tough to make a translation that exactly replicates both the sound and the sense of tone. So now here we come to at the end part of this video. Next video we are going to see unit 3 in a block 1. Thank you everyone.